everyone, it's Julie at Grandma's Creations. Thanks for joining me again. My gadget this week is this. It's this stuff, the Clover Fusible Web, and it's only 5mm wide and it comes in 25-metre rolls. Well, that's at least the one that I've got anyway. So what it is it's just like Bonder web, but it's in a very, very thin strip. So why do you need it? Well, if you do stained glass window quilting, that pattern, this would be very good. I've also used it on a quilt that I did flower stems. I'll show you. So this is a flower stem that I did on a quilt, one of Sarah Filkey's Block of the Month quilts. But what was good about this is when I made the bias binding, I then put some of the Clover Fusible Web on to the back of this at the same time as making the bias binding. And then all I did is ironed it into place, and then I was able to sew with it stuck to where I needed it to be on the quilt. So let me show you how it works. Now, the first thing to note on the instructions is it says, please check the heat sensitive adhesive tape side. So just like Bonder web, it can get a little bit loose and come apart. So first of all, you need to check that you have actually got the adhesive webbing on the tape first of all. Now, this is my Clover bias binding tape maker. They come in various sizes, and it's worth noting that if you haven't got a Clover one, then you probably won't be able to use this web. So these are other bias binding tapes makers. This is another one, different sort, different widths. There's a width size there. They've also got numbers on the back. That's a 12, that was an 18, and this one I believe is a number 6, yes, or number 9 rather. There we are, Clover. So you cut your bias binding strip at the right width and you start it off, which is what I've done here. Then you get your tape and you put this tape, and this is why it won't work if you haven't got a Clover one. You just snip the end off of this just to make sure the adhesive tape's got all the way to the end as per instructions, and then you pop the tape into this end here. There we are, like that, and it fits in that little channel. Now, just as you would with the fabric when you're starting this off, the best thing to do is to use a pin very, very carefully. And then it gets tucked under that there. Can you see that? It's coming out here. So what happens is you can iron this tape on at the same time as you're making your bias binding. Clever, isn't it? So I'll show you how it works. You need to make sure you've got plenty of your tape available and not twisted up. And then you get your iron and you start, make sure obviously the tape's the right way around, because there's a paper side and there's an adhesive side. If you use the wrong side, you're going to get it stuck to your iron. So there we go, you just press like that and you pull it along as you go. And keep going along, keep going along, keep going along till you've done the full length of your bias binding tape. So you can see you've got that very, very thin paper with the web underneath it attached to your bias binding strip. So let me show you now what you do. So what you do now is you start that off and you pull off the paper once that's cool from your strip. Now if this strip was cut on the bias, you would be able to do what I did on my quilt, which would be to go around curves. But I didn't cut this one, this was just a sample. So you turn it over, pop it onto whatever you're doing, and you just dial it down as per normal. And there you have your strip attached, ready to sew. So as I said before, if you haven't got a Clover bias binding tape maker, that's not going to work, but they haven't got these channels here that you can fit the Clover tape into. That's why you have to have a Clover one. But you can see how fine that web is. That's actually detached from the end. You can see how fine that is that you're working with. But it's very, very handy piece of tape. So I hope you enjoyed that. The other thing you can use bias binding for is if I've made skirts before, and you can put a little bit of ribbon around the hem of your skirt, just as a decorative finishing off technique. If you haven't got the ribbon that you want, but you have got a bit of fabric, you could make some bias binding with the Clover webbing, and then again you could iron that around the hem of your skirt and machine it in place, which also looks beautiful. So there's lots of uses for that tape, so I hope you give it a go. If you've got some, I hope you comment to say if you use it or not, or what you use it for, because lots of different ways you can use bias binding. So have a good week, take care everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.